Imagine this. It's 1979, backstage at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. A young assistant hurries in, breathless, to inform the promoters that Linda Ronstadt has once again walked out of the green room. The reason? She noticed his name on the schedule. Not hers, not even the Eagles. His. She wasn't about to stay for that, and for decades, she kept quiet about why. But now, after years of remaining diplomatic, delivering polite interviews, and keeping her silence, Linda Ronstadt has finally broken her silence. She has revealed the names of the musicians she secretly loathed, and the list is far from what anyone expected. This is the unfiltered story of Linda Ronstadt's 7 most disliked artists. The ones who betrayed her, disrespected her, or let their egos run wild, leaving deeper scars than any tabloid ever exposed. In this eye-opening revelation, the illusion of peace in Laurel Canyon shatters, revealing bitter rivalries, backstage drama, and hard truths that were kept under wraps for decades. You've probably heard that Linda Ronstadt played a key role in launching the Eagles, but what you haven't heard about is the bitterness that followed. Don Henley began his career as her drummer and backup vocalist during the early 1970s when Ronstadt was already gaining traction in the music scene. In the beginning, their collaboration was smooth, even harmonious, until everything changed. As the Eagles catapulted to fame, so did Henley's ego. Picture this. A band that once opened for Ronstadt now strutting around like they own the Sunset Strip. The breaking point came in 1975, backstage at the Universal Amphitheater. A heated confrontation erupted when Henley made a disparaging remark about Ronstadt's musical direction, suggesting she should stick to cover songs and leave original compositions to the real artists. Linda didn't just leave the room in fury. She had Henley permanently removed from her tour access list. Whispers among close friends revealed simmering tensions, with Henley making snide comments and flaunting his new rock star status, fueled by arrogance and cocaine. He reportedly mocked her, saying she was too delicate for rock and roll. In return, Ronstadt never forgave the disrespect, later referring to him privately as a climber who sold his soul. This wasn't merely a clash of personalities. It was about dignity, and Henley had stomped all over it. But that wasn't the only wound that lingered. Just when one conflict settled, another emerged. This time with an artist whose reckless spontaneity ignited a lifelong grudge. Imagine the smoky haze of late 60s rock venues. That's where Linda Ronstadt once found herself unexpectedly on stage with one of the most unpredictable frontmen of the decade, Jim Morrison. Their paths crossed in 1968, at the height of the Doors' fame, while Ronstadt was still navigating her place in the male-dominated California rock scene. Their first encounter was intense. Morrison, intoxicated by absinthe and his own chaotic charisma, pulled Ronstadt on stage during a private after-party near the Whiskey A Go-Go. What was meant to be a shared moment of musical magic spiraled into an awkward disaster. Mid-performance, Morrison tried to kiss her, stumbled, and collapsed into her mic stand. There were no cameras, just rumors and whispers, but the moment left an impression that would never fade. Years later, Morrison would insult her again, mocking her in interviews by calling her sweet but spineless. While Ronstadt maintained a calm exterior, inside she was still stung by the memory. Among friends, she described him as a brilliant wreck who ruined everything around him. He embodied everything she fought against in her career: recklessness, male entitlement, and the destructive excess of rock culture. As the 1970s progressed, ideological differences hurt even more than personal conflicts. One of the deepest divides began at a charity event that ended in an unspoken Cold War of ideals. The Feud? Linda Ronstadt versus Neil Young. Both were known for their activism and speaking out against injustice. But when they teamed up for a farm workers' benefit concert in 1976, their shared cause didn't shield them from tension. Young insisted that no politically loaded songs be performed, dismissing Ronstadt's song choices as too mainstream. His tone was dismissive, brushing off her ideas and essentially muscling his way into the spotlight. The night ended with Ronstadt in tears. Reportedly, Young told the press afterward that she wasn't cut out for protest music. That statement cut deep. Ronstadt, whose activism was deeply tied to her Mexican roots and family legacy, was crushed to be called shallow by someone she saw as a fellow crusader. After that, she refused every invitation to share the stage with Young, no matter how prominent the event. To make matters worse, Young would occasionally name-drop her in later years, often in a backhanded, patronizing way. In interviews, she often masked her sharpest opinions with subtle, backhanded compliments, always managing to subtly remind the world of the rift that never quite healed. To Linda Ronstadt, Neil Young embodied a kind of performative morality, loud in message, but ruthless in how he delivered it. Yet some of her most painful encounters didn't happen on stage or in public. They unfolded behind studio doors, where egos clashed and creative chemistry soured. What should have been a moment of artistic unity turned into bitter disappointment, leaving Linda with one of her deepest creative regrets. It was in 1974 that Linda Ronstadt met Frank Zappa during a Los Angeles radio interview. Intrigued by his unconventional and avant-garde style, she expressed interest in recording one of his pieces. Initially, the discussion felt full of promise. However, what began as an exciting creative exchange quickly unraveled. Zappa, infamous for his unfiltered critiques, openly dismissed her input, ridiculed her voice as too polished, and accused her of watering down his art into something fit for mainstream radio. The breaking point came during a rehearsal when he abruptly halted the band mid-song and, in front of everyone, said, "This is what happens when you give real music to a pop singer." Humiliated and enraged, Linda stormed out. While she never made the incident public, within her inner circle she described Zappa as a genius who wielded his brilliance like a weapon, brutal, cutting, and unforgiving. But not all wounds were inflicted by distant collaborators. Some of the deepest came from friends, people once considered family in the close-knit Laurel Canyon scene. Among them was David Crosby, with whom Linda had shared stages, studios, and years of friendship. However, as the pressures of fame grew and Crosby's drug use spiraled, their working relationship began to crumble. During the recording of a harmony track in 1978, Crosby flat-out refused to let Linda shift the key to suit her range. He insisted that she adapt to the real pitch. What followed was a loud, public argument that quickly found its way into industry gossip columns. Later, in a Rolling Stone interview, Crosby dismissed her success as being crafted by studio heads, a passive-aggressive jab that cut deep. Linda didn't take it lightly. She cut off all contact and banned anyone in her band from even mentioning Crosby's name. To her, he became a symbol of how drugs, ego, and fame could consume genuine talent and turn trusted allies into enemies. As the music landscape shifted toward the punk and new wave era, Linda Ronstadt found herself under fire from a new breed of performers, not from her own generation, but from upstarts determined to tear down everything that came before them. One of her most jarring clashes happened with Elvis Costello during a joint appearance at a Cleveland music festival in 1979. At the time, Costello was a rising star in the British punk-influenced new wave scene. Without even speaking to her, he mocked Linda in front of journalists, dismissing her performance as brunch background music. Stunned by the insult and his smug delivery, Linda confronted him backstage. What followed was a drunken tirade from Costello, who threw out yet another verbal barb before walking off. That moment solidified her disdain. In her eyes, He represented a new kind of musical cruelty. Clever on the surface, but ice-cold at the core. Even pairings that seemed ideal on paper could implode behind the scenes. Such was the case with Paul Simon, a fellow icon with whom Linda attempted to collaborate in 1982. The two planned a duet for Simon's upcoming album, a match that should have sparked magic. But rehearsals quickly turned tense. Known for his meticulous nature, Simon constantly interrupted Linda, offering unsolicited direction and rewriting lyrics she hadn't agreed to. To her friends, Linda later confided that working with Simon felt like being lectured by a school principal. The project ultimately yielded no final track. Though Simon never spoke publicly about it, Linda made a private vow never to work with him again. It wasn't just about creative differences. It was about being talked down to, about respect. For years, Linda Ronstadt kept these stories close to the chest. While the rock world turned itself inside out with scandal after scandal, she stayed quiet, poised, composed, and focused on the work. She never indulged in airing dirty laundry. But the truth, it seems, was always there. Between the lines of interviews, in the shows she turned down, in the names never spoken. Telling these stories now isn't about bitterness or revenge. It's about clarity. Ronstadt's career wasn't only defined by her talent, it was defined by resilience, by her ability to endure conflict without letting it reshape her values. She stood firm, especially in an industry eager to overlook women who challenged the rules. By finally pulling back the curtain, Linda Ronstadt isn't just revealing old grudges. She's illuminating what it took to survive and thrive as a woman in a rock scene dominated by inflated egos and unchecked power. Her silence wasn't a weakness, it was strength. And now, as she speaks, she leaves behind not just stories, but a legacy of integrity, resistance, and grace under fire. Perhaps the true story isn't just about the musicians she despised, but how she outlasted every one of them.